Hi guys, Biracial Tiffany here. I finally got another interview with a young lady I met named Sarah, and I knew we had a lot in common, so I was really looking forward to the conversation, and I was not disappointed. So I'm sure it'll be a 2 or 3-parter, so stay tuned for the rest.
Everybody, this is Sarah, Biracial Sarah, and I am mostly so excited about this interview because not only do you have a black mom and a white dad like I do, you went to the University of Michigan and you graduated 10 years after I did, and I'm always wondering, I wonder what this experience would be like if I was 10 years younger. So now I feel like here you are, have shown up to tell me. Where are you from?
I'm from Toledo, Ohio. Born and raised. I spent the last, 6 years or so in Ann Arbor, Michigan at school doing my bachelor's degree and then my master's degree concurrently with no time off. So
wow, congrats. That's amazing.
Ohio, then Michigan, and then here.
And then New York City. You're an only child. And do you have a large extended family, like cousins, aunts, uncles?
I have 5 cousins on both my mom's side and my dad's side. Both my parents have 2 siblings each, so it's pretty small family. Not that close per se, but small. So holidays we try to get together. We saw each other a little bit on and off, some more than others.
Well, are all of those cousins monoracial?
All of them. We have our own vocabulary, monoracial. All of them are, except for 2. My mom's brother is married to a white woman, so both of his children are biracial.
And did you guys ever talk about that?
I cannot say that we did, actually. No, it's I had to think about it. That's an interesting question. I was really close to my uncle's younger son. He's about my age, so we spent a lot of time together growing up. Yeah, I don't think we actually ever talked about that. My grandmother, one day...
Which grandmother?
My mother's mother.
Okay.
So black maternal grandmother. Let me clarify. So she one day she used to live in Atlanta and I was visiting her, and we had this conversation all about me being biracial, completely out of the blue one day, and she was like, I love you, you're my grandbaby, I love you to death, but I'm not on board with this whole mixed interracial thing. That's just not how I grew up. It was segregated. That's just not what we did. It's not cool with me that my daughter married a white guy and my son married a white woman. That's not cool. I just can't get on board with it. And I was probably 19, 20 at that time, so it's not like she didn't have years and years
to get used to it.
So she was just being honest, and so I was like, okay. But then super ironically, after a while, she felt like she didn't want to live by herself in Atlanta, so she moved to Columbus where my parents now live, and she started dating a white guy. She's 80, and she started dating this white guy in her old person's home. So we were all like, oh, who doesn't like interracial relationships?
I love it. Have you ever brought that up?
Yeah, actually the whole family kind of teases her about it, and they're and what's even more interesting is he actually asked her ahead of time if she dated outside her race before he asked her out. He's like, would you consider dating a white guy? And they're 80, so it's so cute. But
it is so cute.
They dated for a while. It was so cute.
Aww. Well, that's progress.
Yeah,
then,
exactly.
Clearly.
So, I guess she's okay with it now.
Were your white grandparents cool with it?
They claim that they were. I can't say anything other than that. I do know.
Would your mom claim that they were?
No. My mom thinks my dad's side of the family is incredibly racist. Incredibly racist. I can't believe I'm saying that on camera.
Continue to be?
Yeah, actually for the most part. But what's weird is, so there's certain parts of my family that definitely use the N-word behind our backs and things like that. There are parts of my family that if my mom and I come to a social event, they won't speak to my mom, they'll speak to me, but they won't speak to her. They will literally we'll stand next to each other and they'll say, hi Sarah, we'll turn around and walk away, we won't speak to her. So because of that, it's really, she won't go to events with it's actually a specific person, she won't go to events with that specific person. And then aside from that, she's very powerful. She has a lot of degrees. She's very powerful. She's overlord. She has a lot of degrees. So she's a very ambitious person, and she's always been kind of the breadwinner of the family, and it kind of created these a lot of marital tensions, I think, with my parents growing up. And so one day she went to see my grandparents, and they were basically well, if you didn't earn, my dad's Jewish, my dad's was Jewish, right? So they're well, in Jewish faith, the guy earns the money, the woman stays at home. My paternal grandmother never had a job, never worked a day in her life. My grandfather was always the breadwinner. So this idea that my mom would make more than my dad was very tense for them, and so they had this whole conversation of basically you're this uppity black woman who came by, and you can't, what can you expect? You need to, if you want your husband to treat you the way you want, you need to get down a notch, basically. So many words. So I don't know, but my grandparents, they love me, and I'm the only girl cousin, so I think that they love having, I get girl special treatment.
Right.
what else I was gonna tell
Is
you.
that mostly from your grandmother? Like, or do
No,
you?
both,
You're
actually.
yeah.
They're both very much like, oh, the girl. So, but they're very loving, and I think like over time, I don't know, my mom doesn't really like dealing with them, but over time it's gotten better in terms of like, I think just like, I don't know, my dad kind of came to terms with things, and he kind of like will buffer the tensions between them and my mom if like, they have to talk to each other, but my mom doesn't really speak to them, and she doesn't really like interacting with them very much, so it's very interesting. And oh, I know what story I was gonna tell you. So when my parents got married, my dad's grandmother actually disowned him for a little while until I was born. I was the first grandchild born, so they were married for 2 years before I was born. So for 2 years he was cut out of the will, completely disowned. Like, he married a black woman, they're not in the family. Totally, she was an immigrant from Belarus, so she's very traditional old woman, and but by the time I was born and I like grew up and I spent a lot of time with her, she loved me. Like, babies make all the difference, like people say things, and as soon as they're babies, everyone's fine. So after that, it was fine. And like I said, I think my mom's family wasn't very comfortable with her marrying my dad either, but I don't think they were as vocal about it as my dad's side of the family was. So I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
It's a lot of attention there. Yeah, definitely some history.
But they're still together.
Yeah, 27 years.
Did you go to predominantly white or black or mixed schools growing up?
I actually went to a private school. It was mostly white and Indian people, funny enough.
Yeah.
Very wealthy, like kind of like the best school in Toledo. Lots of really well-off people went there. So there was a dichotomy between me being a person of color until like, I think, I don't know, 4th grade. I went there from kindergarten first grade all the way up to high school with the exception of like 1 year. So I grew up with these people essentially, and
right.
so up until like 4th grade I was the only person of color, black, minority, biracial, whatever, in my class. And then there was another black girl that came in 4th grade, and it was really interesting because over the years they actually made like a concerted effort to get more black people to the school. So like I can actually like very vivid memories of people like coming to the school, and like by the time I graduated there were probably like, the school in its entirety is maybe only like 500 people from like all the way from 1st grade to 12th grade. It's a very small school.
Yeah.
And there was maybe like 50 black people like spread out through the grades by the time I graduated high school, so versus like the 3 of us that were there like when I started. So it's like a big improvement, right? But at the same time it's very obvious that there weren't a lot of like.
And did you feel like you were very different from all those white kids?
Yeah, in a way, I guess I kind of did. Okay, I have a mini story and then I'll ask you.
Okay.
Like, one of the most like obvious things that sticks out in my mind about like experiences in terms of that is like, okay, I started there in 1st grade. I was 6 years old, and like I'm on the playground one day, and this little white girl walks up to me and she's like, "Why do you look like that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" 6-year-old version. I'm like, "I don't know. What do you mean? Why do I look like what?" She's like, "Well, why is your skin that color?" And I'm like, I think this must be one of those girls that had like never seen like a black person or something previous to like me or something. I don't know. I don't know how you can be that sheltered, but I guess. I mean, in Toledo there are definitely black people, so it's kind of weird. But she was like really confused by like my appearance, and like I used to wear my hair like curly, not like this at all, and like this big poofy kind of afro pigtail type thing. So like braids and things like that. And so she's like, yeah, why do you look like that? And I'm like, well, my mom is black and my dad's white. And she was just like, oh, okay. And like it was like the idea like made sense to her like after I said it. Like she didn't have any sort of problems with that, but like up until then, like it never occurred to her that that was like possible. I mean, I know we're talking about like little kids, but it was like she was kind of like, oh, and it was so weird to me to have to like explain my identity to someone in that way at such a like a weird age, and that's always stuck with me like through my entire life, just like that weird first encounter. It was odd. And then like later in life I had like some of my classmates like tell me like, oh, I couldn't, like, who weren't friends with me, like I wasn't very popular in school, and they were like, oh, like my parents wouldn't let me be friends with certain people. I didn't feel like I could be friends with certain people, which is obviously code for you were black and I couldn't hang out with you, right? Like that. So, and we weren't as rich as like most of the people there, so there's definitely a money thing happening, definitely, it's class and ethnicity at the same time happening, very odd and complex. By the time we got to high school, it was like everyone was kind of friendly with each other, so it wasn't that bad. And there were 2 more black people in my class, so there was actually 3 of us graduating by the time we graduated, and I was really close to them, and like we kind of hung together. But they kept having these experiences that I didn't have, and it was weird. I don't know if it was because like they both came in high school, and since I'd been there for so long, but I didn't get treated the same way as like the black like counterparts, like because like I was definitely the only biracial person, and they were like full black, and they like our teachers would make make these like crazy comments to them or like ask them questions and be like, so what do black people think about this? You know, that kind of thing. But that never happened to me. Like, I don't know why. Like, they never like, I mean, I guess they do know why, but they never like singled out that way. So my friends would be like, oh yeah, you know, we were in English class and we were reading Native Son, and like they're asking us, you know, well, how do black people feel about this? And it was crazy uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, you know, we were in different English class. And I'm like, well, that didn't happen to me. He didn't ask me that. Like, I was kind of like, why didn't he ask me that? Like, I don't want to be put on the spot, but like I want to be put on the spot, you know? Like,
right.
So it's kind of weird. So like I think like I was even viewed like not quite as being like all black, you know, even though my mom was always at school, always this active participant, and I definitely think people associated me with her like more strongly than with my dad.
Did that affect your relationships with the black kids? Did they seem to think of you as all black, or it didn't matter, or how did that work?
I don't think, you know, I don't really think they thought of me as like different. Like I think like come up in conversation, they'd be like, oh, that's just, you know, Sarah's just one of us. You know, like I was in the African American club and used to have those barbecues and things like that, you know, and that kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't really think that they made that like they treated me differently because of that. I don't know, except for when I couldn't relate to their experiences, like being followed. I never got followed around like department stores or things like that. So like I think we had different experiences in that way. And she was also like much more darkly complected than I am. And so like the only time I could actually think of that maybe it was ever a problem is like we went to this conference for like, I can't think of the name of it anymore, but there's a conference, I think it still happens, for like black people that go to private schools. At this conference, like I got a lot of attention from the guys and like she wouldn't get the attention, and like I think we kind of got like in an argument over it, and like probably in retrospect it's because like, you know, black guys gravitate towards light-skinned women for stupid
long hair,
and I definitely, you know, I had light skin and long hair and she didn't, and so, you know, I think we had a little rift over that, but you know, other than that I can't ever think of any time that it was like a big deal.